Hello, and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and today we're going to be talking about impossible totals in DAX. Now, I've kind of covered this topic before in some previous videos a long time ago, where basically I called out, self-service in Power BI is a lie. Because if you have, things like semi-additive, calculations and or a non-additive calculation that you want it to be additive, you can't really achieve that with there's a self-service scenario where users can just throw together whatever fields and have the calculation come out correctly, because you need to be able to know what you're summing across, as far as the calculation in order to achieve correct totals in those circumstances. Um, so talked about it before and basically demonstrated that it's effectively impossible. But I wanted to cover it again because there was an individual that reached out to me on LinkedIn, and they came to me and said, "Hey, I want to have a distinct count, but depending on the aggregation level, it needs to sum those distinct counts together. And I want to use field parameters to do it." So it's been a long time since I've really taken a look at this issue, and I wanted to revisit it, and also revisit it with respect to some of the new things that we have, like visual calculations and stuff. Um, so that's what I did. So we have this data model, and the data model really just consists of this calendar table and this data table, and then I have my field parameter here. And the field parameter I had to turn on because it's a preview feature, and I don't typically use preview features. And it's been a preview feature for like 17 years. It feels like it's really only been like 2 or 3. The field parameters have been around, and they're still in preview. And maybe we'll actually see why here in a little bit here as part of this video. But when you create a field parameter, right, you have to go up to modeling, you go to parameter, you go to fields, right? This is what shows up when you turn on field parameters in preview. When you do that, this is my dynamic field table where I chose year, month, and year, week, and it creates these additional fields that it hides behind the scenes, right? In terms of order, and this is the actual column name and table name that's actually going to grab, as far as going to use essentially. I wish DAX made it easier to be able to grab those kind of things, but that's a topic for another story for another day. So now, as you can see here, I don't have anything selected in my dynamic field slicer, which it adds automatically if you can have that option. And so I have January 2018, and my number of customers is my distinct data. And now, I guess before we get into this, like I'm sure there's somebody out there that's just absolutely losing their mind that we're summing a distinct count, right? Um, and I've caught all kinds of flack for this because I harp on measure totals, where I have semi-additive or I'm trying to sum non-additive measures and things like that. And people give me no end of grief over it. Like that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Never want to sum a ratio or sum a distinct count. That's just stupid and blah blah blah. And I always laugh about it, to myself, because it's like, have these people never actually worked in business before? Like, if they've never actually worked for, is it all academic? Are they just using AdventureWorks, and going through examples and not actually doing anything with it? Because it comes up all the time. All right. And unless you don't believe me, well, that's my channel. Okay. What are some scenarios so if you think this way, you're probably in danger of being replaced by AI. Because even ChatGPT 3.5 is smart enough to know that there are scenarios out there where this is a thing. So what are some scenarios where you would want to sum a distinct count of values? Oh, it can be very useful in business. Scenarios such as, and it lists like 8 of them: customer tracking, event attendance, product usage, inventory management, marketing campaign analysis, employee training programs, healthcare, patient visits, software license usage, and on and on and on. Right. So if you're one of these people that's out there like losing your mind that we're summing distinct counts, get over it. It's actually a thing. It's just that apparently you've never actually worked for the business, or actually had any complex business requirements whatsoever. So anyway, it really is a thing. It happens, and so it actually came to me from a user on LinkedIn as a real business requirement. So now, as you can see, wrong, right? If we do year, week, and we did wrong. Maybe not quite as obvious as 5 to 11 million, but pretty obviously wrong. And if I do year, month, and then year, week, still wrong, right? These are obviously wrong. If I do year, week, then year, month, oh, and then I expand this, week 5, that's wrong. These other ones just happen to have 1 week, right? So how do we fix it, right? Well, let's take a look at a naive kind of way of doing it. I'm going to take this, we're going to add our number of customers total. And this really just kind of, not give away the real Greg. So this kind of implements just the traditional approach to measure totals, fixing measure totals, right? You have a measure that works at the row level, but doesn't work at the aggregate level, right? So this is just kind of an expansion of that concept. So what I do is I create 3 tables, right? I create my months where I summarize by year, month, then the value is my measure. I summarize by week, that's my weeks variable, where I summarize by year, week, and then the number of customers is my measure, right? Month, weeks, where I summarize month and week, and then my number of customers. Then what I can do is I can use my selected, I use concatenate X over across my dynamic field table. I can then, in the month and the week variables right beneath it, I can test, and if I have year, month in that string, I can return true for month. And for week, if I have year, week in that string, I can return true for week. Then I can use these true false variables in a switch statement, switch true statement. So if month and week are true, then I test if has one value year, week. Then I just return my number of customers. Otherwise, I sum X across my month weeks, right? Because I'm in a aggregate row for either at the month level or at the total level. If it's only month is true, then has one value year, month, return my metric. Otherwise, I sum X across my month, my value. And then lastly, then obviously I'm left with week. And then if I have year, week, and if it has one value, I return my metric. Otherwise, I sum X across my weeks for my value. Right. And so let's take a look at the performance of this and see how this works. So as you can see, and when I have nothing selected, basically I have 53, I have 50, and that does add up to 103. And 13, that's 29. That's 40, and plus 15 is, yep, 13, sorry, is 53, right? And then here I have 12, 27, 29, 36, 50. Yep, so these add up, right, to 50. This is 53, that's 103. That all looks correct. We'll try it at just the year level, 2015, 35. That is correct. 13, I added these up. It does, in fact, come out to 99. But now look what happens when I use year, week, and then I select year, month. Now I get a 103, and these numbers didn't change, right? So watch the numbers closely. Doesn't change. They move a little bit, but they don't actually, those numbers at the row level do not change. And so, but the total changed to 103. And you're just like, oh, the total is wrong. Well, that's not actually what's wrong. What's wrong is this row right here is 13 when it should be 17. So 12 plus 5, it's actually a week that spans, 2 months. And in February, there were 12 unique IDs. In January, there were 5. And so it should add up to 17, not 13. But there's no real way to solve this in DAX that I am aware of. Because DAX kind of sucks at context, right? And maybe, well, maybe you believe it or maybe you don't, but I feel like DAX is bad at context, right? It can only handle trivial context, and no better at context than really Excel or paginator reports, right? Because if you think about it, in Excel pivot table, you put a category in, you put a sum of a value. That calculation respects the context of that row. If I add a slicer to that page, that pivot table respects the context that that slicer adds, and that calculation is different, right? And the same thing for paginated reports, right? Which decades. If I put a table, I put a category, put a sum, it respects the row context within that table. If I add a page report filter, right, it respects the context of that filter adds to that page, right? We just never called it context until DAX came along, right? But DAX isn't any better than that, right? It has no idea that I chose year, month first, or if I chose year, month second, right? It has no real idea that I have these month rows underneath this week in this hierarchy. It has no concept of this hierarchy, right? So traditional DAX, right? It has no idea. So everyone like talks as if DAX in context is the greatest thing since sliced bread, but for me, it's really no different than what it has always been in Excel and SSRS, and it's no better at context, right? It just is. It's just bad at it. I can only really handle the trivial context cases that any reporting tool can handle. Um, by and large. So maybe I've convinced you, maybe I haven't, but that's my perspective on it. So the bottom line is, so what you'd have to have is you have to be able to one, understand, you know, figure out, do I need to sum by month week, or do I need sum by just week, or just by month, or just by week month, right? How exactly do you solve that problem? How do I know that there's months underneath my week? Um, I don't see that's a solvable problem. The other issue that you get into with this is just two distinct values. The real scenario has 12. They have 12 different things they want to slice and dice across. They actually come from different dimension tables just to add complexity to it. Now, with just two items, my permutations, because order matters, right? My permutations are A, B, A, B, B, A, right? That's basically it. Um, so how would you, but with 12, you want to know how many there are. There's almost a billion. And that may be like, oh, Greg, there's not a billion. Well, back to ChatGPT. So if I have 12 items and any number of items can be selected at a time and order matters, how many different combinations or permutations are there? Because you can select two items, you can select one item, you can select five items, and any combination of that you can select all 12 items if you wanted to, or you select just 11, and there's all the permutations of that. So according to ChatGPT again, right, and I'm not going to argue with it because I'm bad at statistics. So basically, you have to figure out the permutations for each number of selections n that you would have, 1 through 12, and then you would get to add them all up, and we would get 936,667,244. Now, that's if order matters. I'm sure it's less, but it's still going to be a really high number if it's just combinations, right? So how exactly do you do that? And I actually tried to think about ways to solve this problem where, well, if I could just figure out what is at the hierarchy level beneath me, right? Then, I could say that, oh, if I could figure out some way of having week determine if it's the month is above it or below it, or if it's just not present at all. But once you have monthly, there's no way for DAX really, because it sucks at context. It has no way of knowing whether that month is above it in the hierarchy or below it in the hierarchy. And so I've tried everything because then I could cut this down significantly because I only need have to worry about the other 11 levels and when the testing, but it still wouldn't be pretty. But I couldn't get there with DAX because just I've tried, isn't scope. I tried detail rows. I tried you name it. I tried the DAX function to try to figure out a way for DAX to just be more context aware and just better at context. And it's just not. I couldn't find a way to do it. In otherwise, it's basically you're going to have a billion different tables that you would have to build into your DAX measure, which I don't think that's not a that's you would never fit the DAX code into a measure. The model would reject it. So traditional DAX, I don't see this as a solvable problem. It's the same, as before, where self-service in Power BI is a lie. They wanted the conclusion they came to before. I just don't see this as a solvable problem, and I don't use impossible very lightly when it comes to DAX because I've solved a number of things that were previously thought impossible. But now, what about visual level calculations? We're already using a preview feature, field parameters. What if we use visual level calculations? Can that solve our problem? And the answer is no and yes. So no, because if you're using field parameters, you can't use visual level calculations. They aren't available, right? I've turned them on and you can't use them when you have field parameter table. So in our scenario that, to make it nice for the end user in that, no, it's not going to help us, right? But what if we allowed users to kind of drag items in from the data pane into the rows of the table and kind of build an ad hoc hierarchy? Then could visual level calculations work? And I believe the answer is yes. Yes, they would work. So here we have, again, I have my original number of customers and I have my calculation, right? We can immediately see what I've done here is I've had my year week and my year month, right? And you can see that my number of customers at the week level is 13,600. I have so year week and year, this is our problem scenario, right? Where week 15 was 13, it should be 17. Well, the visual level calculation figured it out. So it figured it out at each of these levels, and the 103 is correct. And if I just use week, these numbers are correct, and they do sum up to 99. And then if I take that out, yep, I know you're going to complain. And I put in year month, 2015 35. That is correct. And if I pull year weekend, 53 50 103, 29 40 plus 13 is 53. Yep. 22 29 36 50. Yep. So visual calculations do seem like they can fix the problem. I'm sure somebody out there is just dying to see what the visual level calculation is to do it. It's not bad, right? It's still code. And it took me a while to get this to work correctly. And there's no example out there, for it for some reason. It seems like the most obvious use case for visual level calculations for me. But again, I'm not going to use them until out of the preview, so I really haven't played with them at all. But I was able to figure this out, where basically the calculations expand all, you sum of the measure that we have against the rows, right? And so it basically what I believe it's doing at every level. Again, this stuff's not super well documented in my opinion, but I think at each level it's expanding all the way out to as far as it can. That's the expand all, and then it's summing at that lowest level is my best guess of what that is actually doing, which is correct, I believe. What I'm not certain of is what happens if we add a third parameter in here, because in this case, expand all, we're never more than 2 levels deep. So at the expand all, it really should work. What I'm wondering about what happens is what happens if I add a third parameter in here, where I drag in something else, like, I don't know. I'd have to do some experimentation with it where I can make sure that there's a split between things. But it does seem to work, because in theory, right, I would want to, if there were 3 levels of hierarchy, I would want the top level of the hierarchy to sum against the second, values of the hierarchy, and then the second one to sum against the third level of the hierarchy, and not have the top hierarchy sum against the lowest granularity, right? So there could be some issues with this. I got to do some more experimentation. But it does look like visual level calculations can potentially be useful. But they'll never see the light of day out of preview, so I guess it really doesn't matter because I won't use them. So anyway, that's all I had for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.